Hey everybody, welcome to Black Lotus Live, where we talk about all things strange and unusual. And tonight we have paranormal investigator Victoria Mundae with us. And she recently had an interesting adventure to the Jefferson Hotel in Texas. And we'll get to that later. But I should mention that she is, along with Mike Ricksecker, she is the co-host of Edge of the I can't even speak. Edge of the Rabbit Hole podcast. And you can find that on YouTube. And I've got a link dropped in the description if you want to check it out. You certainly should, because it's a really good show.
Oh, thank you.
But Victoria, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. It's like the Brady Bunch.
I know.
Paranormal Brady Bunch.
I know, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
I was very sad to hear that you and Mike are splitting up the band.
I was very sad to hear it too. What can you do? It's astrologically, it points to this is the time to end things, and he's got so many amazing opportunities, and I have cats, so this is a good time to step away, but I think he's reserved the right to bring the band back at any time. So
well, that's cool. That's cool. I hope you guys do. I hope you bring it back.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I've learned so much from Mike and all of our guests, and it's just been an amazing opportunity.
When is your last show going to be?
Our last guest is, make me do math, March 22nd. Okay. And then March 29th, it's just he and I chewing the fat, he said. I'm trying to turn it into a drinking game. So, or bingo, like every time I go, oh my God, my cats or something, you have to mark off a square. Or, like, did you hear the EVP? There's a square there. So I think that would be fun. We'll
Sounds
see
like
how
fun.
that goes. Yeah.
Mike's a great guy. Ralph and I had him on our podcast and to talk about shadow people. And we also talked to him about the shadow person that was in our house at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, how did that turn out? I remember you mentioned it to me when we were chatting. Or if I can ask, I don't want to.
No, that's not a big deal. It's not here anymore.
Okay.
And I have a friend of mine who's a psychic medium, and she did a reading on it, and she said that the thing felt as though I was holding it prisoner here.
Really?
And it became so common for us to see this thing like out of the corner of our eye. Yeah. And even our cat would see it, and so I would say, hey, how you doing? It just became passe, but it left when it left, it would leave behind just this really creepy feeling, Ooh. And so I talked to Heidi Hollis about this, and she said, don't acknowledge it. That's what it wants. And so it feeds on that. And I'm like, all right. So anyway, I talked to that psychic friend of mine, and she did a reading, and she said that she thought that it thought that I was its warden. And so she said, the next time you see it, just throw some love and light at it and say, I don't know why you feel this way, but I'm not holding you prisoner. And
shadow
you're
people
free
need
to
love too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I told it, I said, you're free to go anytime. And we haven't seen it since. And it's been almost 2 years or so since it's been gone.
I'm sorry. It's funny you mentioned that because I was telling you before we started, we have 5 cats that have just kind of come to us like right before they die. And we're like, oh, well, come on in. You know, we got room. And one of them actually did pass away. And we have seen his shadow. And this is when my daughter and I were living in an apartment. And we saw his shadow all the time. And so I was asking a friend of mine, it's like, well, I don't want to leave him here because we're moving. Should I like tell him to go? And he goes, okay, well, you saw it, didn't you? You never want to tell a cat what to do. I'm like, oh, okay. You're right. So we just started leaving, empty boxes around, and we started calling them cat traps. And it's like, well, here's a cat trap, you know? And so we're a little goofy down here in Texas. Sorry. But we actually carried the empty box, you know. And if he wanted to come, he could come. He was more than welcome. And sure enough, he's here. Not only is he here, he's brought a friend. So now we have 5 living cats.
Wow.
And 2 shadow cats.
Wow.
Wow.
7 cats in total.
Yeah.
Cool.
At least you don't have to feed them.
5 of them we do. But how many cats am I allergic to? You know, 7.
Yeah.
But,
we have a spirit of a cat here with us.
You know, and I think you're
cool.
right. It is because the cat we adopted that had died, he was so abused. He was actually, his spine had been broken. His little jaw was off. He had a snaggle tooth, and he was an awesome cat because every time I turned on Star Trek, he would come running and jump in my lap. And it really kind of ticked off my daughter because she's not a Star Trek fan. She's more Star Wars. So, you know, so we love Zach. Oh, we named him after a paranormal investigator we won't mention. But we gave him so much love. Oh no, I made him disappear. Oh geez. Okay. But we gave the cat so much love. He did hang around us. You're absolutely right.
Can you put it on chat?
Huh?
Can you put a chat on?
Oh.
They're gonna display a comment, someone said, I think.
Uh-oh.
No, I didn't have the chat up. So.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of the chat, want to say hello to Coral Ann, one of our moderators.
Hey, Coral Ann.
We've got Dorothy Hawkins here.
Oh, yes, Dorothy.
Walt Corbin is
Hey,
here.
yeah, Dorothy.
Walt's the best. Love Walt.
And I don't recognize this person, but
That's my friend. We met. We did an investigation with the Wraith Chasers yesterday. I
Hey.
rushed home. So I met Haley yesterday. She was awesome. So.
Welcome, Haley. Good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Glad you're here.
how was that
Hi.
investigation with the Wraith
Hi,
Chasers?
everybody.
That was a lot of walking. I thought it was one building. Again, I really should check these things out before I do them. But I was told it was one building and it was benefiting a boys' club. Okay. It turns out it was pretty much the whole town, and it was benefiting an animal rescue society, and the Wraith Chasers were in. So we were walking all over the town, like, okay, let's go to the train depot. Okay, we're over at the jail. You know, it was awesome. It was like speed dating, but for ghost. You know,
I saw a video that you uploaded to Facebook about.
We had so much fun.
You were communicating with them with light on a wall, as I recall.
Yeah.
So how did that go?
It was the Wraith Chasers had a REM pod, and nothing was going on in the jail. We were talking, and nothing was happening. And so all of a sudden, we turned on Johnny Cash, and we all started banging our foot on the ground, and it started going off. It was changing harmonics, it was changing colors, and we'd stop a song and say, "Well, do you want us to do it again?" It would start lighting up and going crazy. I'm like, "Okay, here we go." So
almost like Johnny Cash.
Well, who doesn't? I mean. But one of them, I'm not sure if that's the one I put on Facebook or not. I thought it was me moving my phone around, but there's like a little dancing light. But when I looked again this morning, I'm holding it fairly steady, but you can see this little dancing light going around. So I don't know if that was somebody that was hanging around or what the heck it was, but it was a great time.
And where was this?
We were in Granbury. So, which is Central Texas. It was about, okay, well, if you drive correctly, it's 3 hours. But when I drove, it was like 6 because I'm like, oh, look, and I would stop.
Oh, you drive like me. You drive like me.
Me too.
That's why you drive, so you can stop and do these kind of things. And,
Right.
Yeah, it's like I've been
So-
driving 20 minutes. I need to stop.
I was talking about your Edge of the Rabbit Hole podcast, and I recently watched one of your episodes, the one with Leslie Mitchell Clark on it.
Yes.
And we had her on, and
Oh.
she was the one who convinced me that I didn't have just one abduction experience, that I've probably been abducted since I was a child.
Really?
And she was mentioning this, and as she was mentioning this, I had this flash memory of walking with my mother past a cow pasture, which would be very unlike my mother because she was a businesswoman. She wouldn't be caught dead, And I remembered walking with her past this cow pasture, and over the pasture, there was a silver disc in the sky. And I looked at my mom and I said, "Mom, what is that?" And she says, "Never mind, let's go." And she grabbed my hand and we walked off.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes me wonder if perhaps we were both taken at that time, but I just don't remember it, and Ralph and I have had a missing time experience, and we can't remember anything about it. But yeah, weird.
I think
but
that-
yeah,
that
she was the one
happens.
who,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That happens because things like that would happen to me, and I would mention it to my mother, and she's like, "No, that's just your imagination." So I think maybe something did happen. And I had a missing time experience also when I was pregnant. I missed like 35, 40 minutes, and I don't know, who knows, but I did see a UFO at that time. I was at a red light and I looked up like, oh, wow. And I watched it while the light was red, and then the light turned green, and I drove on. And when I got to where I was going, my husband goes, "Where have you been? You're 40 minutes late."
Oh.
I was like, well, no, I drove straight here. I'm not late. So, who knows?
Interesting.
Have you had any other UFO experiences?
Yes. Well, that's the one that stands out the most because I could describe it. I can draw it. I can color it. But when I was living in Arizona, as all transplanted Texans have, we have convertibles. We have our big Mustangs out there in Arizona. And I was going down the 101 and I saw kind of a chevron, it was during the day, chevron UFO just kind of fly over the 101 heading out towards the Superstitions. And I'm in a convertible and I'm looking around like, well, people look, and no one's looking. They're just driving on. And
Wow.
so I don't know. Am I the only one that saw it, or was it so
Wow.
common no one else paid attention to it?
That's crazy.
When I was in Texas, I used to love to look at the skies because, they're just absolutely beautiful. But I don't recall ever seeing anything unusual in Texas. And then I've never stayed in Arizona for too long. But I don't think I recall seeing anything there either. But here, living here in Las Vegas, we've seen all kinds of strange things.
Yeah. It's the desert, I think. It's more spacious and less populated. If I were going to land somewhere, I don't think I'd want to land on the White House lawn. I would want to go someplace where I could kind of watch. Like we were talking before, I like to watch and see what's going on. And maybe someday let them know.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I heard somebody recently say, speaking of the White House lawn, that as far as disclosure goes, they're not going to land on the White House lawn. The people that are going to disclose this stuff are people like us, people who have seen this stuff, and people can believe us or not, but we're bringing you the truth.
Right. I mean, there's no point of lying. I mean, let's tell them the truth.
Yeah. So what initially got you interested in the paranormal?
I think the paranormal got interested in me because I have never been one to like seek it out really. The first growing up, I remember things and I put them like on a little Post-it note and stick it in my brain. And then, time goes on. And I remember being about 2 or 2.5, and my mother and sister were in the next bedroom and they were yelling and fighting. Who knows? And there was a chinaberry tree outside our window, and it started, blowing in the wind. So I looked over at it, and then when I looked back, there was a lady standing in my room. And don't judge me, but she looked like one of the fairy godmothers from Sleeping Beauty. Mind you, I'm 2. That's my frame of reference is Disney movies. And she said to me, she goes, "You're not like them. You're one of us." And I said, "Okay." And then she said it again. She goes, "You're not like them. You're one of us." And then the tree started blowing again, and this light beam came in. And I looked back at the window, and when I looked back, she was gone. So I went and asked my mom. I said, "Who was that lady?" And she dismissed me as always. Yeah, go away, go away. But I've always remembered that. Anytime I felt like I didn't fit in or something weird was happening, and I'm not like the friends, and junior high, don't even want to talk about that. It didn't fit in anywhere. Well, who fits in junior high anyway?
Right.
But yeah, I always remember that lady saying, "You're not like them. You're like us. You're one of us." And so that's okay, And then when I was 7, my grandpa died, and that was actually the first ghost I saw. And so since then, anytime someone was about to pass that was in my family, I would either have like a vision or a premonition, if you want to call it that, or a daydream is what I usually call it, or an actual dream at night that something happened. So, my mom, my dad, my best friend, my husband. So, you don't want me to dream about you, I guess. But,
Interesting.
yeah.
Very interesting.
So I always thought it was like, I'm a big crier. I'll admit it. So, I always thought it was
me
like
too.
oh yeah. We don't even want to talk about it.
Aw.
Oh my God.
We are
Shiloh. But, things like that happen to
Big
me,
empath.
and I go right, and I go through all the mourning and the grieving and the crying, and like, man, that was a hell of a dream. And then when they actually do die and pass, while everyone else is falling apart, I've already fallen apart. So now I can, I guess, help them along. Sorry.
Right. Interesting.
Like empaths.
Yeah. Yeah.
I lost my mother when I was 16 to cancer.
Oh, sorry.
And then my dad when I was 18.
sorry.
So, they happened really, really quick. But like you,
Oh, wow.
but see, mine happened after they passed, that they would come to me in my dreams and they would talk to me in my dreams. Until my great aunt, she passed away. I saw her in my dream before she passed away. And that was kind of strange to me that I got that one beforehand. So
Did it help you prepare for it, kind of? Or you really can't prepare for anything like that, but
no, well, when my mom passed away, we knew it was coming. Cancer is just one of those things. We knew it was coming. And my grandma wakes me up because I was staying with her. My grandma wakes me up in the morning and she tells me she passed. And I'm like, oh man. All right, well, I got to get ready for school. So I go to school and my dad goes, oh, no. And he brings me back home and says, no, you're just in shock. Well, maybe that was the case. I'm not sure. But I broke down at the funeral when I saw her in the casket. And that's when I needed to stay out of school, but I wasn't allowed to at that point. So I don't know, but I think with all the things that I've dealt with, I've had to deal with a lot of loss. And I don't think it ever really prepares you. I think you might know, but when it really happens, it doesn't prepare you. But I was able, like I said, I was able to talk to my dad in my dreams and stuff like that because he left unexpectedly. It was my grandma woke me up and I thought she was going to tell me my grandpa died because he's old, whatever. But she tells me my dad died, and then I broke down immediately when my dad died. I was like, whoa, because that I wasn't expecting, I think. And he used to talk to me in my dreams and tell me everything's going to be all right. You're still my little princess. And I'm like, okay. So,
yeah, my dad passed almost a year ago. It'll be a year in June. And he's still here. I hear him all the time. And so a couple of weeks ago, we had a psychic on Edge of the Rabbit Hole. And, this is my living room. This is my set, I guess you want to call it. And when he logged in, he goes, there's a man sitting behind you on that sofa. I was like, is it this guy? And I showed him a picture of my dad. And he goes, yeah, that's him. I'm like, well.
That's cool. That's cool.
Can he fix my car? I don't know.
Tell me what's wrong with my car.
Yeah. It's your turn to take the trash out, Daddy.
Tell us about your experience at the Jefferson Hotel.
Again, this is something I should have researched. I had how you hear the little voices in your head, or do you hear the little voices in your head?
Yes.
Okay. My little voice said, "Get your butt up and let's go." And I said, "Okay, where am I going?" And I said, "We're going to Jefferson." I'm like, "Okay, well, let's go." And so I logged on. A friend of mine had been to Jefferson. She's like, "Oh, it's you need to go with us sometime and stay at the Jefferson Hotel." I'm like, "Okay." So I went in there and it was a Wednesday. It was a week or so ago. And so I logged on. I looked at the rooms and it's like, "Well, I like that one. I'll take that one." And turned out I was the only guest there. So I knew it was haunted, but I don't know the stories or anything because that's kind of cheating and
Sure.
my viewpoint,
I like
So
that.
I drive.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I drive there, and have any of y'all been there? It's an amazing hotel.
No.
I have.
No.
Okay,
Oh.
it's up in kind of way up northeast Texas. It did take a really long time to get up there,
Okay.
and so the owner let me in, and he goes, and I was the only one staying there, and it's one of those nice doors where you have to do the little code, so nobody can just walk in. And so he and his wife had to go run some errands. I said, "Well, okay." So he took me up to my room, and he goes, "Have a look around. We'll be back in a little bit." I'm like, "Okay, so you're leaving me here alone?" Okay. I have no problem with this. And he goes, "Just don't sit on the bed. You can look anywhere you want." I'm like, "Okay." So this building, I'm sorry?
Oh, I said cool.
Oh yeah. So it's about 170 years old, the building. So it looks like something out of the French Quarter. It's got all the iron on the outside. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
And it was I think originally a cotton warehouse where they would store cotton because it was right on the river. And I think it was he told me all the things. It was so many different things. It was a home and a hotel. It was a brothel. What in Texas was not a brothel at any one time, but everything out here is haunted brothel. But now it's just this really cool hotel, and he's got it really. He collected antiques, so there are themed rooms. There's like a doll room, and then there was a nautical room and a train room. And so I stayed in the room with a real pretty bed. So I thought, well, that one happens to be the one where they call it the haunted bridal suite, and there's this beautiful bridal dress in there.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, cool. It's got the pretty bed. I'm staying in here. So he and his wife left, and I'm walking down, and the floor kind of creaks a little bit. So I was going real slow because I don't want to tear up anything. So I'm going slow, and they have these beautiful red ropes that go across the doors. So I'm like, well, I can peek in, but I won't go mess with them. So there was one with dolls, and I don't know. I collect Barbies, but that's about it. These were some
Another
big
toy
dolls.
collector. I'm a big toy collector as well. So.
See, bear cats,
Toy collectors, bear cats.
Hamburger, Huntsville.
So were they like porcelain dolls?
Every kind you can think of. There are antique dolls, big standing dolls, little ones. They're all over the room. And so I'm peeking in. I'm like, okay, I don't like dolls. I was like, hey guys, how you doing? And so I walk on.
Yeah, I don't do dolls either.
Dolls and clowns, and snakes. I don't do those.
Yeah, me too.
Dolls, clowns, and snakes. That's funny.
You want to throw spiders in there, and we'll have a
Spiders too. Yeah.
Don't do those.
Dolls, clowns.
Nope.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm about 10 feet away from the door, and this is the time where I'm there all alone by myself, and I hear. I'm like, what the hell?
No.
I'm like, it's got to be motion activated. So I'm going down the hall a little bit more. I'm like, why did it go after I passed? Delayed. Okay, so I'm going down, and I have this like third eye thing of a man behind the staircase looking over at me, like, who is that down there? I'm like, okay, so there's a man with a hat. Okay, man with a hat. He's here. So I'm walking down a little bit further, and weirdest things happen. So I go downstairs, and I'm looking downstairs. Beautiful antiques, mahogany beds. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous hotel. And I had this feeling that something was going on. So I turned around, and one of the velvet ropes was swinging out from the door, like somebody was jump roping.
Wow.
I'm like, okay.
Oh.
I'm like, okay, so where's the vent? What's making this go? I'm like, well, there's not a vent. Okay.
Wow.
So I go back upstairs, and by this time the owners get back. And they're very, very kind people, and they go, if you need anything, send me a text. And so I'm texting him. I'm like, so the doll just started laughing. That's normal, right? And he goes, no. I'm like, oh, okay. So I wait a little bit because I don't want to bother him because he's busy. I said, well, the rope started swinging out when I went past the room. I was about 10 feet past and I turned around. The rope was going. That's normal, right? And he goes, nope.
Oh, man. Oh, wow.
So I'm like, well, I'll be in my room. So I'm going in my room. And the story about that room is the bed had a huge backboard. And I can't remember the year. I think it was like 19 something, early 1900s, 1903, 1904, somewhere in there. They call her the Jilted Bride. Now, she and I talked while I was in there, and she doesn't like that name. And, really, can you blame her?
Right.
So she actually took her own life. She hung herself from the top of the bed.
Oh.
I'm like, and so I asked him, well, you have a new mattress, right? Because I'm okay. As long as the mattress is new, I'm good. But he said people have heard like the bed tapping and the bed shaking and people run out in the middle of the night. I'm like, well, okay. And I was there on Wednesday and he said there was a man there Monday, so 2 days earlier, and he didn't make it through the night. He ran out. I'm like, well, what happened? Did he see something? Did he hear something? He goes, I don't know. He just left. I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there and I'm resting and I'm playing on my computer. And there's a little built-in cabinet with a TV and stuff on it. And then, I kid you not, I'm sitting there. I'm all by myself upstairs and I hear. So I look over at the TV and I say, hey.
Relax.
Jeremy is. Yeah. So I said, hey, somebody's knocking behind the TV. And he goes, well, I'm downstairs. I'm like, okay. Gotcha. So, and then the bed starts shaking.
Whoa.
Like, Jeremy, the bed's shaking. Is the bed normal? Because I'm thinking, okay, the train's going by, the air conditioner's coming. I'm trying to rationalize everything. He's like, no, that's not normal. So this goes on all night long, things like this.
So bizarre.
It's such a fun place. And I'm so glad I didn't know anything because I probably wouldn't have stayed. So when I got in there, I heard a woman go, I'm Jenny. And I could see her in my mind's eye. And she was like taking her little white dress and going back and forth like she was like a kid.
Yeah.
And so when I was talking to him later, he's like, how you doing? I'm like, well, I saw a man down there. He said, well, can you describe him? I'm like, yeah, gray hair, slicked back. Looked like he was from Wild Wild West time. He had a longer coat on. And his eyes start getting really big. And he goes, I've seen that guy. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. Glad to know I'm not crazy. And he goes, I've seen him twice. I'm like, okay. And he stays down there, right? He goes, no, he's all over.
Oh.
It's like, great. Okay. And he goes, you know about Spielberg, right? He goes, Spielberg was here, but he was making a movie. And I think it was the 70s. I'm like, okay. Here comes the communication part back again, right? Oh, what is Sugarland Express, right? And he's like, yeah, that's the movie. And he goes, Spielberg saw that man across the street at another hotel, scared the bejeebies out of him. And about 2:00 in the morning, he and his whole crew left. And that became the man who is in Poltergeist, who is the Hat Man.
Wow.
I'm like,
Oh, okay.
I'm like, oh. So now I'm on my phone. I'm looking Hat Man, Poltergeist. It's the same guy I saw. So I'm like, okay, now that kind of, now I'm getting the shiveries.
Wow.
So that kind of got my senses going. And I told him, well, when I walked in, I heard someone going, I'm Jenny. Right. And he goes, his face just turned white and his eyes got really big. And he goes, you know who Jenny is, right? I'm like, I don't know anything about this place. No, I'm sorry, I don't. And each room is themed. And there was a room kind of diagonal from where I was, and it was called the Pride Room. And the Pride was a bed and breakfast that burnt down a couple of times. And it was built in 1888, and there was a big fire in like 1901. And the owner's daughter died in that fire. And they have a lot of memorabilia and some trimming and stained glass that was from the Pride House. And he goes, well, Jenny was the daughter who died in that fire. I'm like, well, she's in my room. So, I mean, can you move her back across the hall? So then he tells me, well, you may not want to take a bath because they're the beautiful clawfoot tubs. I'm like, oh, yeah, what's going on? And he goes, there was a prostitute when it was a brothel and she died in the bathtub. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I won't take a bath tonight. And he's a lot of people hear water splashing around, and then they go in the bathroom and there's no water. I'm like, okay, well, thank you for letting me know, and I'll make sure I'll stay out of there. But I didn't know until the next morning that she was actually attacked, stabbed, and then the guy that she was with dumped her body in there, and she bled out in the bathtub. I'm like, maybe I should do some research before I start doing these things.
Yeah, that's pretty extreme, right? That doesn't happen everywhere.
Well, you think,
But it's good to
that's the
do
most.
cold calls.
Well, so I thought. The story continues. So it's right on the train tracks, and so I'm attributing a lot of the shaking because the train's going through. And turns out that wasn't true. But the floor, it was a roller skating rink too. So it's got the long slats like you'd find in a roller skating rink. That's what the top floor is made of. And it creaks when you walk down. And so I didn't get any sleep at all because, I'm waiting for the haunted bride to come tap on the headboard or something, but that never happened, thankfully. But I heard somebody walking down the hall, and it got louder and louder and louder. And I started thinking, well, this is like textbook how to make a scary movie. You got the 3 knocks, you got the bed shaking, the phantom smells and all this kind of stuff. And now here comes the creaking floorboards.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, cool, this is it. Yeah. But it gets louder and louder and louder. And I'm thinking, okay, well, they're up. This is what they do. They check the property. Now, the owner and his wife are downstairs somewhere else. I don't know where their rooms were. And I'm the only one upstairs, all the way at the end, last room. In case of fire, where am I going to go? I can't get out. So it gets louder and louder and louder. And it starts echoing in the room. And the only thing I can think of is the movie The Haunting, where, they're in there and everything's getting louder and the girls are about to go crazy. I'm like, well, this is pretty cool. How are they doing this?
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at my watch, and it's straight up 7 a.m. I was like, okay, I'm going to remember this. It's one of those Post-it notes and stick it in my head. And the door, it's such a cool hotel too, because this door was not original to this room. They put it on, and it's not weather tight, but you could see through it, and it was cold. It was in the 30s that night. So I'm bundled up in the blanket, and I'm just on the bed, still in my clothes in case I have to run. No shoes, but I'm always barefoot. And so I can see the crack in the door. It looks like it's about a 6 foot tall man, and he's just going like this. I'm just seeing a shadow, and it's going all the way down the hall, and it stops at my door. Well, granted, I'm at the end of the hall, so where else is he going to go? And I'm like, okay, what you got? I never heard it go back or anything.
Right.
Which I didn't connect that till later. I'm driving home. I'm like, I never heard anybody walking back down the hall. And I thought about getting up and jerking the door open, but it was in the 20s. I didn't want to get up. I'm in my blanket. So it's like, well, whatever. I'm safe. I'm fine. So when I get home, I send him a text and saying, thank you. I had a wonderful time. Thank you for having me. And by the way, who was walking down the hall at 7:00 in the morning? And he goes, well, let me get the footage. And so he sends me a screenshot of his footage, and there's motion activated cameras throughout the whole building. So at 7 a.m., something was triggered in the hall, but when you look, there's absolutely nothing in the hall. There's nothing until 9:40 when I walk out, So something triggered the motion camera, but I don't know what it was.
Very bizarre. Yeah.
It was a great trip. Yeah.
Sounds like it. You got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
When you do these investigations, do you bring equipment with you?
I do, but I never use it. No? I have all the equipment. We've had fun with it, but I don't really think I need to prove the paranormal exists. It's like saying, hey, I'm going to prove gravity is here. Well, we all know it's here. I just like to experience it. But I do take a digital recorder with me, which I forgot to turn on yesterday. So, but I've gotten some really cool EVPs, and we were down in Yorktown Hospital, and we've got a lot of really good ones out there. And I just like to experience it, and I don't really think I need to prove it.
I was wondering, what is your current obsession? What topic are you really getting into right now?
Finding a job. No. We had layoffs a couple of months ago. So,
I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry. To hear that.
Me too. But that's my little voice. That's why it said get up and go, because you're about to get something. I don't know. The thing I seem most drawn to right now is light workers and
Okay.
helping people understand that, this is just temporary, and to live through your heart chakra and to live and be happy and, take each day for what it is. So,
Oh.
Things
That's
happen
good.
for a reason.
yeah. There's your kitty. Oh,
I told you.
yeah.
So
Oh.
before we go on, I want to pitch something else here. Victoria has a book out on Amazon, and it's a planner. Can you tell
Oh,
us
I
a
have a
little
lot.
bit about that?
I have. Well, you mean the yearly planner?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got so tired of trying to find a planner that has when does this zodiac sign start and when does it stop? When's the full moon? When's the new moon? So I made my own. So
Cool.
it's on Amazon. But I also have a series of 6 books out because I don't know if you want to hear the story if you have time or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
Okay,
definitely.
well, my husband died a long time ago, so here I am at my age trying to date again.
Sorry, honey.
And
Sorry to hear that.
well, it's not like he's gone; he still shows up. I mean, he turns the meet and greet into a met and regret. So I've learned that 'cause people flee. When you bring up this subject of ghost or whatever, they're like,
Sure.
I'm Republican, I'm out of here. So
Yeah.
this is just a gentle way of bringing it in, like, oh, what's your favorite scary movie?
Right.
So I was chatting with a young gentleman. Well, he wasn't that young, really, but I was telling him stories like this, and he's like, "Wow, these are amazing! You need to write a book." I'm like, "Yeah, it's going to be called Victoria Mundae's Paranormal Activities, and it's going to be a big coloring book because that's all it is, because it's nothing really scary." I was like, "Hey, that's kind of a funny idea." So I have a series of 6 books out. They're for adults and children. Each one has like a different topic. It's got coloring pages like Mothman and
Awesome.
Yeti and here's a ghost and
Wow.
EVP, here's a portal, and then there's like puzzles and stuff. Because I started realizing once you start thinking creatively and get out of that little box that a lot of people are in, this is when you really start experiencing all the woo woo of life, and that's kind of where the fun stuff is.
Yeah.
So,
That sounds great.
Awesome.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
You mentioned that it's not really scary to you.
No.
Have you ever been on an investigation that did scare you?
yes and no. I was at the Haunted Hill House up in Mineral Wells, and it was not scary because, again, it's a haunted brothel. I guess this is what we do in West Texas, but I smell really, really well. I can pick up scents,
Oh,
and
wow.
I could smell like
Yeah, me too.
raunchy. Yeah, okay, raunchy body odor and whiskey is what
Oh,
it smelled
no.
like.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was like I was in a waffle maker, and so I
Wow.
realized, oh, there are 2 men behind me, and they were starting to do things that were not appropriate.
Oh, no.
Maybe if it was a working girl there, it would have been appropriate, but it wasn't appropriate, and so that kind of scared me. I'm like, well, bad man, you don't do that. But the fact that there was 2 men, one on each side of me, that did bother me. But yeah, the inappropriateness of it kind of did.
Hmm.
Uncomfortable at the very least, right?
Yeah, it's like, hey, I don't know you. Don't touch me there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Wow. That is intense.
But if you protect yourself, you're all right.
oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it took a second to snap out of it. I'm like, hey, this is not right, And so I said something, and people were like, oh, yeah. Because everybody else was in a room. I'm like, okay, you need to come out here because it smells like body odor and whiskey. And they're like, yeah, sure. And then what was really funny is there were like 5 rooms, and I was standing at the top of the stairs when I first smelled it. And about 4 or 5 minutes later, someone down the hall went, oh, my God. And so it had drifted down there. And so it was moving room to room. And you could just hear people scream throughout the house, oh, my God. It was the craziest.
Wow.
That would be
You need to go if you haven't been.
Do you guys have any questions for Victoria?
What incident told you that this was all true? Because you said before, you're not trying to make anybody believe this anymore because it's there. What incident made you believe that?
Well, the people dying, that was a big one for me. especially, for 3 days, I knew my friend was dying, and I cried and I cried and I cried, and I finally got in touch with her mom, and she died this morning. I'm like, oh my god, okay. But I did ghost tours out here in Old Town Spring, and one of the things we did is we did like a séance up the road in Madisonville at a bed and breakfast that was haunted, and I kind of got bored, so I went up in the attic with some others, and I'm like, oh my god, there is a man over there, and I started giving the story. I'm like, there's a man over there, and he's pissed off. He doesn't want us up here, and he's going, he doesn't want us here. Came back downstairs, and I told everybody exactly that, and they're like, sure, okay, go sit down, sweetie. And so they go up with all their SB whatevers, their boxes. They start getting messages from him. They come down about 20 minutes later. Mind you, okay, we're Texas in the summer in an attic. It's like 110 up there. They come all down. They're dripping in sweat. And they're like, oh my God, you won't believe there's a man upstairs. He's hiding and he's angry. I'm like, well, I could have saved you 20 minutes. But yeah, that was the big one. So I learned to start trusting what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing. And it happened again last night. I mean, we were spot on. We were naming names, and the dowsing rods are like, boom. Okay, like yeah, they're real. They actually do talk.
So that experience that you were referring to that really flipped things over for you. How old were you then? Were you still real young, or?
That was like 4 years ago. So I was 20.
Okay.
I was 20 when that happened.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I wasn't.
I believe you. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I believe
She
you.
crammed a lot into 24 years.
I'm kind of curious about something. Have you ever been on an investigation in New Orleans? And the reason I ask is because, I always say that Ralph and I are paranormal magnets because we've experienced the paranormal so much in our lives.
Mhm.
And New Orleans is supposed to be one of the most haunted cities in America. But when I lived there, I never experienced anything. So I was just kind of wondering if you had ever been on an investigation there.
I went to New Orleans one time, and it was like in 1996, and this was before there were paranormal investigations. And there was a man there, and I cannot remember his name. It was Larry something. And he was very famous in the paranormal world. And he had a ghost tour. And I'm like, okay. And I had my 35 millimeter film camera. I contacted him. I was like, what film speed? He goes, get 1,000, shoot fast, shoot light. And so I was doing everything he did. I had my aperture all the way open, and he took us all through, I guess it was just like the square and Bourbon Street in that area. And he would take us into haunted buildings, and he goes, okay, point right here, take a picture. And I take a picture. And then we went to some children's theater, and he said, okay, there's a ghost up in the balcony. You go up there. And so I went up, and I was taking pictures like he said, and the group kind of went on. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I start kind of scooting through the seats. I'm like, excuse me. I was being a jerk, I'm like, excuse me, sir. Pardon me. And right when I got to one spot, it just felt like I walked into an ice freeze. There was I'm like, oh my God. And so I just kept on going, Never thought about that again. When I got my film back, and there was one room, it was broad daylight. It had a light bulb. You could see out the window. And I think there was some sort of Civil War soldier had died or something in there. And said, okay, if none of my pictures come out, this one will, because I am shooting the light bulb, and I'm like right on the light bulb. None of my film came out. It was all foggy. Now, when I went outside and took pictures, just like, of my husband and my daughter, those were fine. But in the haunted buildings, nothing came out. And so then later I was watching some show. I can't remember what it was, but, Travel Channel does all those spooky ghost shows. And so they were at that same theater, and they did they were on the stage, and they looked up, and so they keyed in a ghost. And so this man came in, and then he keyed out, and it was exactly the seat where I felt that cold burst of air. So that was, I don't know how to explain that, but that was fun.
I never saw anything paranormal there. But I remember going into that tavern, Lafitte's blacksmith shop.
Yes.
and it's reportedly very haunted. And I could feel spirits in there, you know. And there's supposedly Jean Lafitte actually haunts the place, and then there's a woman upstairs. Yeah, I don't remember the entire thing, but yeah, you can. It feels creepy in there. And when you're a local, you know, I would go in there during midweek when the tourists weren't there. You know, so it would be just me and like a bartender. And yeah, I mean, so and I remember once the guy went back to get some ice out of the ice house, and so I'm alone in the place, and oh my God, I just felt it on me. You know, but. Yeah, I never saw anything though.
It's weird. Our house is fairly active here. We've been here almost 2 years. And like the second day we moved in, my daughter and I have always lived in apartments. And so we have a townhome now. We have some space. So we're in the kitchen and we heard two men yelling like right around the corner in front of our staircase. And I looked at her and I said, "Did you hear that?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's our neighbor next door." Like, "Sweetie, we're in a house. We don't have a neighbor next door." You know? So we go around and look. It's like, I don't know. But I hear him walking. There's something that walks over at 3:30 in the afternoon when I'm, you know, downstairs. But if I'm upstairs, I don't hear it. And there's this cute little boy with blonde hair that pops up. And I'm an ambassador for the Texas Renaissance Festival. So I have all the velvet dresses and everything. And when I was started hanging up my dresses in my closet. Oh, yeah. I have so much fun there. I noticed
Love
things
that
were moving.
stuff.
Oh, yeah. I have a motion sensor light in my closet. And as soon as I started hanging up those dresses, that light started coming on. I was like, okay, well, it's me running up the stairs. So we do a test. No. I was like, okay, well, it's me sitting on the bed and I'm typing. Well, no, that's not it either. So I have a few other friends who are very intuitive, and we figured out it was a little girl who lived here. And her mom was sick is what we were getting. And we were moving in. It's hot. It's Texas. I'm like, whoo, I'm tired. You know, I flop across the bed. And, you know, I'd go in the bathroom and I had a shower curtain that had like the liner and then the curtain.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, I really should have taken that apart before I moved, but So, you know, I get up off my bed and it's taken apart. I'm like, well, how did that happen? You know, and it was little things like that. And there were always helpful things. So I figured, you know, she's just helping us. So that's fine.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
You had mentioned briefly about paranormal shows and investigative shows. What are your thoughts on those?
It's funny. I was just talking about that yesterday. I think they did well to expose people to this. And I'm saying all this with love in my heart. It was more exclusive, I guess, when you had the big teams like TAPS and Ghost Adventures and all that. And then people started getting cell phone videos, like the common man can do it now. So it's not so, woo. So that's a good thing. I think that it's exposing the truth, if you want to call it that, to more people. But I think it's kind of getting watered down a little bit too much now. I love my friends and they're like, follow me on blah, blah. I'm like, okay. But they're walking around for 20 minutes holding their phone and it's all this profanity. I was like, okay, edit it. Let's hear it. Let's see a tightly done story and I'll watch it. I don't have 30 minutes to watch you walking around, you know, jumping out at shadows. So I do feel that it's moving away. Well, somebody just tapped on my door. It's moving away. Be there in a minute. It's probably that squirrel. We have possums and squirrels out here.
Oh, nice.
I heard something on the deck back here one night. I'm like, oh my God. I went down, locked the doors, and I'm doing this out the window. And I go in my bedroom upstairs and flip on a light, and there's a possum looking in my window. Scared me.
Hello.
Anyway, but I do feel that it's moving away from, we need hardcore proof. Look at my EVP. Here's my picture of my, you know, my ghostly figure, to more of a uplifting. It's moving into an Aquarian age, if you want to call it that. It's, yes, this happens. Yes, this is true. This is real. Okay, we're embracing it now. Now we need to understand and accept it and move forward. So I think it's slightly moving to that, because some of the people we've interviewed are like, yeah, I don't know, we want to start taking a twist. And so hopefully it's moving in that direction.
I hope so, because I'm sick of them. I really am. And when you have people out there like Zach Baggins, who are just doing it for jump frights, I mean, it's just atrocious, really.
Yeah. It's insulting.
Ralph and I were speaking to a paranormal investigator, and I asked him, I said, we've never been on one. What is it like? And he said, well, they jazz it up on TV for Hollywood purposes. He says, really, it's a boring job. It's a lot of hurry up and wait, and you may get something, you may not. And so that's why they jazz it up like that, to keep people's interest.
They do. We were down in, where were we? Yorktown Memorial Hospital, which is down near San Antonio. It's extremely haunted. And we had a celebrity paranormal investigator with us. So I moved off with my friends because I got my own equipment. I'll go do my own thing. So we were down in the OBGYN room where the babies were being born. And it's a tight little room. And I felt someone put their hands on my hips, like, excuse me, I'm going to scoot by. And so I have an EVP, and you can hear me go, oh, I just got touched. And my friend that I was with, he's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, it's just somebody touched my hips. And then I was taking pictures. I had a full spectrum camera. And you could see this little purple orb kind of move through. And then about 20 seconds later, you can hear our guest investigators scream in the hall, oh my God, bleep, 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 bleep. I saw a shadow person. I'm like, well, I'm thinking that's my person that just went by. I was like, well, okay, first of all, there's no need to scream and shout profanity. If this is something you have chosen that you want to do, then, what's your language, And you busted my EVP too. So, it's like, how dare you? But she was terrified.
Well,
one of the things that really drives me nuts about these investigative shows is when they provoke the spirits.
Oh yeah.
That's just rude,
Yeah. Like last night, I mean, we kind of provoked him, but we were playing Johnny Cash, and
well, that's different. That's different.
You weren't trying to upset them.
Well, I started singing, and they kind of got upset. Make her stop.
I like that idea of provoking things, but not doing it in an aggressive manner. Like,
right.
I have the idea of like, I want to like rile them up with like absurdity. So I want to go to Skinwalker Ranch, take a boombox, the middle of the night in the road, and just play a song and just start dancing for hours on end. With a crazy costume, just to try to get them to interact with me. But I'm not aggravating them. I'm just being like ridiculous, basically.
Yeah, shake it up. Because
the aggravation that I don't like is when they demand things from these spirits. I mean, and that's just not right. I mean, if I were the spirit and they came in there and started harassing me like that, I would never give in to their demands.
Exactly. While we were back in Yorktown, I have back problems, and so a friend of mine does Reiki, which I'm really having a hard time believing in Reiki, but it does work. But logic is telling me it doesn't work, but my other side is telling me it does work. So we're all friends here. I can tell you this story, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I taped selenite duct tape to my back, because it was a long trip. And when I got there, my back was feeling fine. And so we had checked in the hotel room, and I'm taking the duct tape off, and I'm like, whoa, my rocks are hot. And my friend's like, what? And I was like, the rocks I had on my back are hot. And so he's like, well, I'm just going to start calling you Hot Rocks. I'm like, well, no, that's not what I meant. And so we broke away from the group. We're down in the basement, and I could see, third eye, a janitor, somebody moving fold-away chairs. And he was kind of over by the boiler room, and my friends were there. I'm like, can you light this up? Can you make it go to red? I'm like, oh my God, if I was a ghost, I would come over there and flick that out of your hand, And they left. And so I was there with my other two friends, and I was like, well, it's like, man, do you like hot rocks? K2s go up. I was like, oh, so you like hot rocks, huh? Every time I said that, it would go over. I'm like, well, do you like my gemstones? Because I wear a lot of gemstone rings. Nothing. I was like, so you like the hot rocks? And then, they would all go over. I'm like, okay, they have humor. I think you take your humor back with you when you cross over. So
Sure.
yeah.
That's
I
one
had
of the
a-
reasons I like Kitsy Duncan from Paranormal Crossroads, is because she doesn't antagonize them. She simply sits there and asks them,
Yeah, we did that last night. One of the bakery. Here again, it was a brothel at one time. So we were in the bakery last night and we got there a little bit late. And they had all the REM pods out and everything. And someone had put a $20 bill on the staircase because it led up to the crypt or whatever you want to call it, crib, whatever those words are. And the REM pod was going off. And so the guy was over there talking. It's like, well, why don't you come down here and, blah, blah, blah. And the REM pod stopped and another guy had the SL whatever going off. So I went over there to the first guy by the staircase and I put my arm around him and I said, this is my guy, back off. And the guys on the SLS or the SBS. And he goes, they just said, this is my guy. I'm like, no, I just said that. So, have fun with them. I mean, we weren't provoking. We weren't saying, come down here and show yourself or anything, but just joking around. But
I wanted to ask
interrupted you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I wanted to ask, can you name a place that you would like to revisit? A paranormal place you've visited? And then if money were no object, time were no object, where would you want to go to visit paranormal?
So many places. I always wanted to go to Easter Island. Because I have Hollow Earth is one of my big passions. I should have answered you that. Hollow Earth. I have a theory. But Mike has an Ireland. Mike Ricksecker has an Ireland tour, and I was going on it, and it's been pushed back for 2 years, and then we had layoffs. And I'm like, I have to drop out. But we were going to do Lep Castle. We were going to Spike Island. We were going to be the only ones on Spike Island. And we're doing a stone circle. So Ireland, I would love to go to someday. Hopefully, look at that chance. But
I'm sure
the Hill House. I hope so. The Hill House was amazing. It's up in Mineral Wells.
Okay.
In New Orleans. I've always wanted to go to New Orleans, but now you say it's not haunted. So,
Well, they say it's haunted. I just never experienced anything there. And it seems strange to me considering I've experienced a lot of different hauntings at various places, but yeah, not New Orleans.
yeah.
I'm sorry?
Oh, there's so many places I'd want to go, deep South, Galveston. It's so rich in
Really?
with the hurricane. Oh yeah. The Galvez.
I need to do. I go to Galveston very often, many times a year, but I don't.
Oh,
I don't know where to go. So I just go to the Strip, just walk around the beach. But I'm sure there's some buildings, right?
Oh yeah, the Hotel Galvez, because that was actually
Okay.
there, I believe, when the hurricane in 1900 hit.
Oh.
And there was the orphanage. If you go down the Strip seawall a little bit to where the Walmart is.
Yeah, I know where that's at. Yeah.
Okay, that Walmart is haunted. That's where the orphanage was, and the nuns tied themselves and the children to the top rafters. And when the hurricane came in, it just blew them all away.
Oh,
And so toys move around Walmart there, and they actually close Walmart at 10. Walmart's are 24 hours, but that Walmart closes at 10.
wow.
I guess because kids have to be in bed. I don't know. But yeah, the Hotel Galvez has in the ladies' room down by the spa and I have a picture of him. It was another lady took it, so I took a picture of her picture. There is a pirate ghost that shows up in the ladies' room, and
nice.
you take a selfie in the picture, and he's back there behind you, and it was a pirate man.
Wow.
In the ladies' room. It's like, wow, that's kind of cool.
That's Hotel Valdez. Is that correct?
Galvez, yeah, it's way
Galvez.
down, towards the north end.
Okay, I'm gonna stay there with someone, but I'm not gonna tell them it's haunted. And
Okay,
see what happens.
Yeah, we'd go down there and hang out. So I found an Airbnb, and I was running late. I didn't know it was on the ghost tour. First of all, I didn't know it was haunted. So I have my purse, and I'm running down the stairs, and I jerk open the door, and there's a ghost tour. I'm like, oh, hello. And they're like, are you a ghost? I'm like, no, I'm running late. I've got to go. So,
wow,
a lot of fun stuff.
All right.
Well, I need to say something before I get dropped off again. So you could tell, I told you I have problems with my computer. It's really old. Kim got dropped off for internet purposes, but she wanted me to thank you very much for coming. And just so you know, that was from her, that she's so glad you came. And she's very upset that she couldn't finish the show with you.
She can call.
I think she speaks for all of us. You know, it was really a
Yeah.
pleasure to have you on,
Yes.
Oh,
Victoria.
thank you.
But
Yeah,
I
the
think
hour
we are
went
going to
quick.
get out of here
Oh, okay.
for the night. Viewers, thanks a lot for watching. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And when you do hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you're notified every time we do this. We do this every Sunday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. And so, yeah. And do us a big favor. Share it around. Share it to your socials. Share it to your friends, you know. So, but anyway, Victoria, again, thank you very much for being here. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you.
Oh,
It
thank
was
you.
very
I
pleasure.
enjoyed this. Oh, it was so
We'll
nice
have
to meet
to-
you all.
We'll have to have you again. I feel like there's so
Yes.
much more.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
that we could
Most
talk about.
definitely.
I haven't even started about the cats, but
And you're a really good storyteller. You're very funny.
Oh, thank you.
I like hearing about your experiences.
oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Until next time, folks, keep thinking and question everything.